The internet is full of disturbing content, but every now and then, a video surfaces that feels far more unsettling than the rest. These are the kinds of clips that make you question what you're watching. For David Turpin and his wife Louise, their annual trips to Las Vegas were meant to symbolize love and commitment. Year after year, the couple renewed their wedding vows in ceremonies that became something of a family tradition. What made these events stand out even more was the fact that all 13 of their children were often present. David and Louise had originally married back in 1985 when David was 23 years old and Louise was just 16. Despite the decades that followed, they continued renewing their vows in nearly identical ceremonies, many of which eventually found their way onto YouTube. Looking back now, those videos feel deeply unsettling, not because of anything obvious in the footage itself, but because viewers now know what was happening behind the scenes. Not long after those family videos began circulating online, one of the Turpin daughters quietly created a YouTube channel of her own. Her name was Jordan Turpin, and she was just 17 years old at the time. Unlike her parents' carefully curated family videos, Jordan's uploads were simple and personal. She posted videos of herself singing original songs from her bedroom. Occasionally, viewers could catch small glimpses of her home in the background, but nothing immediately seemed unusual. To anyone stumbling across her channel, she looked like an ordinary teenager sharing her music online. Her final upload seemed no different. Like the rest of her videos, it was simply another performance. Just 1 week after posting her final video, Jordan made a desperate decision that changed everything.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
I just went away from home because I live in a family of 15. We have abusing parents. Did you hear that? They hit us, they throw us across, they like throw us across the room. They pull our hair, they yank out our hair. My 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
She escaped. After fleeing her home, she called 911 and told the dispatcher that she came from a family of 15 and that her parents were abusing all of the children. During the call, she described being beaten, having her hair pulled out, and revealed that 2 of her younger sisters were currently chained to their beds. She explained that they had been punished for trying to steal food because they were hungry.
What's going on?
Okay. I just ran away from home.
Okay.
And I live in a family of 15.
Okay.
My 2 little sisters right now are chained up.
They're chained up?
Yes,
Where are they chained up at?
on their bed. They're chained up because they stole mother's food.
Okay.
But they stole it because they were hungry.
Because of how serious the accusations were, police immediately responded. Jordan was waiting in a nearby neighborhood when officers arrived, and their entire interaction was captured on body camera footage. During the conversation, she appeared incredibly nervous and repeatedly apologized for talking too much. She then explained why she was struggling to communicate. She had barely interacted with anyone outside of her family for most of her life. She told officers that she had never really spoken to people from the outside world and admitted that escaping her home was one of the most terrifying things she had ever done. At first, the responding officer seemed unsure of what he was hearing. At one point, he asked Jordan whether she was taking medication. Her response immediately revealed how isolated she had been.
Any medication?
What's medication?
Medication?
Yeah, what's medication?
Do you take pills? Do you take pills?
She asked him what medication meant. When he explained that he meant pills, she still seemed confused by the question. That moment made it clear that this situation was far more severe than anyone initially realized. Jordan then showed officers photographs she had brought with her as evidence. The images appeared to show her sisters chained up, along with the filthy conditions inside the home.
Proof of everything, but I have proof that my sisters are chained up. Look at that. See, those are the places that make it on that. And see how dirty she is? We're so filthy. We don't take baths. We don't.
How did your sisters get like this? Your parents chained them up?
Yes.
She explained that the children rarely bathed and lived in constant neglect. That same night, officers entered the Turpin home and discovered the full extent of what had been happening. The house reportedly smelled of garbage and human waste. Trash covered the floors and surfaces throughout the home. Inside, Police found Jordan's 12 siblings living in horrific conditions. One child had reportedly been chained for weeks, while 2 others had only recently been released. Many of the children were severely malnourished and physically weakened after years of abuse. Some were so underdeveloped that officers initially struggled to determine their ages. One sibling was 29 years old but weighed only 89 pounds and was initially mistaken for a child. Investigators later learned the children were fed only once a day in small portions and were allowed to shower just once per year. The abuse allegedly carried out by David and Louise Turpin shocked the entire country. Reports later claimed that Louise had committed even more disturbing acts involving some of her children, making the case even more difficult to comprehend. What makes those old YouTube videos so disturbing in hindsight is how normal everything looked. The smiling family photos, the vow renewals, and the seemingly happy children all created an illusion that completely hid the truth. Those trips may have been some of the only times the children were ever allowed to leave the house. And rather than being moments of freedom, they may have been carefully staged performances designed to convince outsiders that everything was fine. Jordan's secret YouTube channel was equally risky. Her parents reportedly banned nearly all forms of outside communication, including social media, television, and internet access. If they had discovered her channel, the consequences could have been severe, but she continued uploading anyway. Whether she hoped someone would notice her or simply wanted a connection to the outside world, those quiet uploads became a small act of resistance, and eventually, that same bravery helped save her siblings' lives. Without Jordan, many believe the abuse would have continued indefinitely. David and Louise Turpin were eventually sentenced to life in prison, and their children were finally removed from the home. But even that wasn't the end of the tragedy. Years later, a foster family assigned to care for several of the Turpin siblings became the subject of abuse allegations themselves. The foster parents, Marcelino and Rosa Organ, along with their son Lenny, faced multiple charges, including child cruelty, false imprisonment, and witness intimidation. Marcelino was also accused of molesting 2 of the children he was supposed to protect. After escaping one nightmare, some of the siblings allegedly found themselves trapped in another. Still, there has been at least some hope. Several of the Turpin children have reportedly started building independent lives of their own, and Jordan in particular has found a public platform through social media where she now shares her life openly. After everything she endured, many people see her survival and her courage as nothing short of extraordinary. On December 5th, 2009, people gathered inside a popular nightclub in Perm, Russia, known as the Lame Horse. The venue was celebrating its 8-year anniversary, and more than 300 guests showed up for the event. While the club measured only around 5,000 square feet, it was packed far beyond comfort that night. To document the celebration, organizers invited a cameraman and interviewer to record the evening. Early footage shows them casually walking through the venue, speaking with guests, and capturing what seemed like a completely normal celebration. Everyone appeared to be enjoying themselves, and the night was only just beginning. After several interviews, the camera shifts toward the dance floor where the crowd had grown even larger. The atmosphere was energetic, and the MC was entertaining guests by joking with 2 young women near the stage. Everything seemed completely normal until a subtle moment changed everything. On the far right side of the frame, a woman who is barely visible suddenly turns her head toward something behind her. Her expression quickly changes from confusion to concern. Noticing her reaction, the cameraman slowly turns to see what she's looking at. That's when the camera captures the first sign of disaster. A spark from an indoor pyrotechnic display had reached the ceiling and ignited decorative branches that had been installed for the event. Within seconds, that tiny spark turned into visible flames. At first, most people didn't seem to understand what was happening, and many simply stood frozen in place. But once the MC realized the severity of the situation, he immediately shouted into the microphone, warning everyone that the club was on fire and instructing them to evacuate. The moment those words were spoken, panic took over. According to the club's layout, there were technically 2 exits, the main entrance and another exit located behind the stage. The problem was that the second exit wasn't clearly marked, and many guests didn't even know it existed. As a result, nearly everyone rushed toward the front entrance at the exact same time. With over 300 people trying to escape through one doorway, the situation became catastrophic almost instantly, as smoke rapidly filled the building. People began piling into one another at the entrance. The doorway became a deadly bottleneck, trapping people in place as the pressure from the crowd intensified. Guests near the dance floor were left completely disoriented, unable to see through the thick smoke and struggling to breathe. Then, in the middle of the chaos, the footage suddenly cuts out. When the recording resumes several minutes later, the cameraman has made it outside and is filming from the street. The footage captures the chaos spilling into the roads, but what happened next made the tragedy even worse. According to survivors, emergency responders didn't arrive for nearly 20 minutes. One survivor later said that when they escaped, there were almost no emergency workers present, only 2 ambulances that quickly left after taking a handful of victims. Meanwhile, survivors who had been pulled from the building were left lying on freezing pavement for over an hour. Many were severely burned, barely clothed, and suffering from shock, yet they received little immediate help. Temperatures that night had dropped to -16 degrees, and many believed the delayed emergency response may have cost additional lives. By the end of the disaster, 156 people had died, 101 at the scene, and another 55 later in hospitals, making it the deadliest fire in modern Russian history. And when people revisit the footage today, 2 moments stand out above all else: the woman who seemed to notice danger before anyone else, and the tiny flame on the ceiling that initially looked harmless before it turned into a catastrophe. On the evening of April 9th, 2015, a tornado began forming near Franklin Grove, Illinois. At first, it looked like a storm that residents in the area had seen many times before, but within minutes, meteorologists realized this was becoming something far more dangerous. 67-year-old Geraldine Schultz noticed the storm developing in the distance. Concerned by what she was seeing, she called her husband Clem into the kitchen so he could take a look. Together, they watched the dark funnel cloud through their window as it moved across the landscape. For Clem and Geraldine, tornadoes weren't exactly unusual. They had lived in the area for years and had seen severe storms before. Clem believed this storm would likely move east and miss their home entirely. Still, he decided to prepare just in case the power went out, so he went upstairs to grab a few lanterns. That decision may have saved his life. When Clem reached the upstairs bedroom, he got a much clearer view of the tornado through the window and immediately realized something was terribly wrong. The tornado was far closer than he had originally thought. By that point, the storm had intensified dramatically. Winds were reportedly exceeding 200 miles per hour, and the tornado had officially been classified as an EF4. This wasn't just another storm passing through the area. It had become an extremely violent tornado, capable of leveling entire neighborhoods. Like many people faced with something that feels almost unreal, Clem reacted in disbelief. He pulled out his phone and began recording. From the upstairs window, he filmed the massive tornado as it moved across the landscape. Even then, he still believed it would narrowly miss his home, but it wasn't moving away. It was heading directly toward him, and by the time Clem realized that, there was no longer enough time to react. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. All he could do was keep filming as the tornado closed in. Then it hit. Within seconds, the EF4 tornado tore directly through Clem and Geraldine's home. The house, which had reportedly stood for more than 100 years, was completely destroyed almost instantly. Buried beneath that wreckage were Clem and his wife of 25 years, Geraldine. Against overwhelming odds, Clem survived. Somehow, he managed to pull himself from the debris and crawl out of what remained of his home. When he emerged, the neighborhood around him had been devastated. The tornado continued tearing through the region, destroying multiple homes along its path. 2 people were killed. One of them was Clem's neighbor and close friend, Jacqueline Closa, whose home could actually be seen in the footage just moments before it was destroyed. The other was Geraldine. Clem had survived the storm. His wife had not. In the days following the disaster, family members searched through what remained of the home and discovered Clem's phone buried in the wreckage. Amazingly, it still worked, and stored on that phone was the now infamous video, a first-person recording of someone being directly struck by a tornado and surviving to tell the story. The footage is difficult to watch, not because of graphic imagery, but because of the context. Watching someone unknowingly film what would become the final moments of normal life inside their home feels surreal. Within minutes, everything they had built was gone. And for Clem, that video became a permanent reminder of the moment he lost nearly everything. Natural disasters are terrifying because they strike without warning and often leave nothing behind but destruction. But the next story is disturbing in a completely different way, because instead of leaving behind too much evidence, this case left behind almost none at all. It began on a quiet January night in western Taiwan, inside the UN Land Finance and Economics Building, a 16-story structure that contained both office spaces and residential units. After midnight, the building was mostly silent. Businesses had already closed for the night, residents were asleep, and the only person still actively working was the building manager stationed in the lobby. At first, the night seemed completely routine. Then a woman suddenly entered the building carrying a small child. The building manager immediately noticed her, because he didn't recognize her as a resident, since all of the offices inside the building were closed. He stopped her and asked why she was there so late at night. Her response was brief. She claimed she was there to meet a friend. Then, without offering much explanation, she quickly entered the elevator with the child and disappeared upstairs. Something about the interaction deeply unsettled the building manager. He couldn't explain why. He simply had a bad feeling about it. As the night passed, he expected the woman and child to eventually return to the lobby. They never did. By the following morning, curiosity turned into concern. Wanting to know where they had gone, the building manager reviewed the building's security footage. That's when things became far more disturbing. At approximately 12:29 a.m., the woman can be seen inside the elevator repeatedly pressing the button for the 11th floor. As the elevator moves upward, she calmly removes her coat and places it on the floor. Then she removes the child's coat as well. When the elevator arrives at the 11th floor, she steps out with the child, removes her shoes, and walks down the hallway toward a stairwell. That stairwell led directly to the roof, and after that moment, neither of them are ever seen again. The building manager immediately contacted police. After reviewing the footage, investigators feared the worst. They believed the woman may have taken her own life and the life of her child by jumping from the rooftop. One detail seemed to support that theory. In some East Asian cultures, removing shoes before death is sometimes viewed as a sign of respect before entering the afterlife. But when police searched the area surrounding the building, they found nothing. No bodies, no blood, no physical evidence of a fall, nothing at all. Investigators returned to the surveillance footage and reviewed every possible exit point in the building. Nearly every entrance and exit was covered by security cameras. If the woman and child had left normally, they likely would have been seen. But the elevator footage was the last confirmed sighting of either of them. That discovery triggered an extensive search. Police searched floor by floor. They knocked on doors. They searched hallways, stairwells, maintenance areas, and private rooms. No witnesses came forward. No residents reported hearing anything unusual. And despite multiple searches, investigators found almost nothing. The only items discovered were the coats and shoes left inside the elevator, the woman's parked moped outside the building, and an empty suitcase found near the rooftop stairwell. Police described the suitcase as suspicious, but never publicly explained whether it was connected to the disappearance. As time passed, the mystery only became stranger. Authorities repeatedly searched the building over the years, including another search in 2013. Investigators even examined water pipes and water tanks after drawing comparisons to another international disappearance case. Still, they found absolutely nothing. Eventually, a man named Zhang came forward and identified the woman in the footage as his wife. The child, he said, was their 4-year-old daughter. According to reports, the woman's surname was Liu, and she shared 4 children with Zhang. Their relationship, however, was reportedly troubled. Some reports claimed the couple had a serious argument that night. Others suggested abuse may have been involved, which may have prompted her to leave home with their youngest child. Their oldest daughter later said Liu told the family she was planning to stay with a friend for a few days. She never returned. Even after identifying her, investigators still had no answers. There were no confirmed sightings after that night, no financial activity, no movement involving the daughter's school records. It was as if both of them simply disappeared from existence. Over time, locals developed several theories. The first is supernatural. Some believe the woman and child somehow vanished into another dimension, or encountered something beyond explanation. The belief became so widespread that much of the 11th floor eventually emptied out. According to reports, only one family remained, because other residents became too frightened to stay. The second theory is that they died somewhere inside the building and their bodies were somehow missed. Police seriously considered that possibility for years, but experts argued Taiwan's intense summer heat would likely have exposed human remains through smell or accidental discovery. That leaves the final theory. Somehow they escaped the building without being captured on surveillance footage. Some people believe there may have been a blind spot in the camera system, large enough to slip through unnoticed. But that theory raises another question. How would Lu have known exactly where that blind spot was? As far as investigators knew, she had never visited that building before. And even if she had escaped, why abandon their belongings? Why choose that building? Why go to the 11th floor? And if they successfully disappeared, how have they never resurfaced? Years later, those questions remain unanswered. There are no confirmed leads, no closure, just one grainy elevator recording and a mystery that no one has been able to solve.